you're making great progress, feeling the momentum starting to form, and then boom, some sort of travel, work trip, or event comes up and it sets you back. It can be tough to see consistent progress and maintain healthy habits when there's minimal structure or routine and you're constantly on the go. And this tends to be the case for almost every one of our clients that comes to us. They're stuck in that on off cycle because life gets busy. They have to navigate airports, work dinners, work travel almost every week. It's a lot to juggle. And I think some of my favorite wins is seeing clients make things automatic and go into trips without stressing and even coming back at new low weigh-ins. I had one of my clients, Dan, he went to Portugal for a few weeks. He ate whatever he wanted. He had some wine, didn't work out, and he actually came back at a new low weigh-in. So I love seeing those types of things and having clients be able to navigate travel and navigate the uncertainty with confidence and know that they aren't going to get off track and they can still make progress toward their goals.
Yeah, you said something about stress. I was thinking we're going to talk about like work trips and we're going to talk about vacations for the most part. And on a vacation, obviously the goal is to de-stress, or get away from our stresses, the real world type of thing, and just be able to relax. And then work trips, there's already a lot of stress as it is on that trip. So the last thing you want to do is just add extra stress to that. So that's one thing we're going to talk about is, how to minimize the stress on a work trip, and not have stress on that vacation and just be able to make the best of both those worlds, but really enjoy that vacation and really make that work trip as productive as possible without having to worry about other things.
Absolutely. Such a good point. And the overall truth to this is the key to success isn't about being perfect. It's just about being intentional. You've got to go in with a plan, and it really is that simple. That's all it comes down to. Before you head into a trip or an event, take a few minutes to think about what's coming up. What are your meals going to look like? Will you be able to get workouts in? What is that going to look like? What kinds of food should you avoid? It's not about creating a rigid schedule that leaves no room for flexibility. In fact, it's important to accept that things won't always go as planned, and that's okay. They usually never do. The goal is to enter each situation with a strategy so that way you're not left scrambling or making decisions that don't align with your goals. And so we want to break down the exact practical strategies we use for ourselves and with clients to keep you on track no matter what's going on in life, because you can still manage the trips, events, enjoyment, and meaningful progress toward your fitness goals all simultaneously.
Yeah, and that's you said it. It's having that plan, and the importance of planning ahead of time. And we're going to talk about going in different directions, different ways you can kind of approach these trips. But it's all about the mindset going into it and already having that structure and idea of what you want to do and how you want to approach that trip. What about yourself? Are you a pretty big? I mean, I can probably guess, but are you a pretty good big planner when it comes to these trips? Just any kind of trip, work trip or vacation?
Yeah, for the most part, I am. I've been getting better at letting myself stress less about it. But it's actually perfect timing too, because I did just get back from a trip to Arizona this week. And in that trip, I had a work dinner to go to. I had a big Christmas party for a company that I worked at. And so I had to be able to navigate that while also making sure that I'm like staying on track with what I need to do, because I really do love being locked into my routine. And I think the Christmas party is interesting too. These types of events are always just interesting going into. I feel like, I don't know, I've always just struggled relating to people. I just feel like a lot of the people there, I just don't align with them, or like the mindsets that they have around stuff. Like everyone's going in just, there's unlimited drinks, so everyone's just going crazy with the alcohol and stuff. And it's just, I think it's the small talk that gets me. Obviously, being introverted and just my personality, I hate small talk with a passion. And so these type of events are never really my thing, because I really do prefer deeper conversations, and like I want to be able to connect and relate to the people I'm talking to. And usually it's really hard for me to do that with a lot of people at these types of events, or even just like corporate situations in general. So I thought it was interesting going into that, and it really provided a lot of perspective to, even on like, especially just going back to Arizona. It seemed like being in Florida the last year, I feel like I've grown so much. And then I go back to Arizona and everything's exactly the same. And all those people are almost exactly the same. I even ask, like, oh, what's new? And they're like, oh, nothing, just working and all that. So I don't know, just it's so weird. It puts things in perspective too on like how much things have changed for me and the trajectory I'm on, and just kind of seeing how things are stagnant in that regard when I go back.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you. So, how did you plan for everything then? I mean, you kind of knew like what to expect, and I mean, we've all probably been to Christmas parties. They're all very similar, in some way or another. So like, did you do any extra planning for any of these parties, or and tell us everything, like everything from how did you manage the small talk? How did you plan for the food? And you said you don't drink, so obviously the alcohol wasn't a big deal. But what about being around people that are drinking? Like, how do you kind of deal with all that, all those aspects of a party?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the alcohol, that's something that I'm very used to just because I haven't drank in so long. I'm used to being around people who are drinking. I think sometimes it can get a little bit obnoxious. Obviously, if you're someone that's sober and just like pretty locked in, then everyone else is just like going crazy. So sometimes it can be like a little bit annoying. But other than that, people have accepted that as just how I am, and they don't really bug me about it anymore, which is good. So that part's easy. Like you said, I just kind of go and do my thing, drink some water. Um, and as far as the small talk, I just try to go in with the intention to connect with people the best I can and like ask more in-depth questions to the best that I can, and at least do my part and try to make people feel seen and heard and understood. But it is hard in that scenario too because everyone's just kind of bouncing around. They're just like catching up with everyone. It's just like very surface level and just like, oh, how are you? Good. Oh, great. Awesome. What's going on? Oh, and so then you move on. So it is tough. But I just do my best to like make that as deep as I can and then also make sure that I'm not overextending myself. I'll also just, if there's someone that I know a little bit better, I'll just go hang out with them. And sometimes I'll just go sit on my own and eat dinner or something so I can have my time to gather my thoughts and just like chill. So that's kind of how I navigate that piece of it.
Yeah, and I'm similar in terms of being pretty introverted, and so like the small talk is not I'm not the biggest fan of it, But I've found that if I kind of go in with the approach of really just trying to talk about them and find out more about them, or just how their life is going right now, and just really try to dive deep into their life. I feel like that takes pressure off of me, trying to talk about me or anything that I'm doing. So I feel like that's helped some as well. Like small
Yeah.
talk stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great way to just connect with people in general is I always try to be the one asking more of the questions. Like I don't want to be the one talking a lot about myself because
Exactly. Yeah.
people like you when they get to talk about themselves. And so I always try to do that and like get them to open up as much as possible and try to connect with them and hear what's going on in their life. So I think it's a great tactic in general just to get to know people and to connect with people and to build likability in general.
Yeah, I would get really nervous, talking to someone that I didn't know, whether it was at a party or at the gym or anywhere really. And there's still a part of me that is a little nervous and just introverted about things. But I'm much more confident and relaxed now that I have that approach of finding out more about them and then trying to find out something about their life, about them personally that I can connect to, and then spending a lot of time talking about that. So like for me, of course, anything sports related, if I find out they're a fan of anything, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about this, or of course if it's around, health or fitness or anything like that. I really try to focus on things that I have something that I can share with them or have some commonality with them as well.
Yeah, I actually like that. That's a really good idea. I think for me, it's been a tough practice learning how to do that too, just because I've always been on my own. I never really talked to a lot of people, put myself in a lot of events like leading up to the last few years. And so even just the art of asking the right questions is such a practice that I've been working on. I'm still not very good at it, but I think it's one of those things that you do have to practice and learn, but it is very valuable. But I like that of finding something that you're also kind of aligned with so that way the conversation flows a lot better. You have something in common there.
Yeah, for sure.
So outside of that, as far as how I figured it'd be good to go into how else I prepped for my trip and just kind of what I did in general to stay on track. So I packed some supplements, packed some protein snacks, shit ton of protein bars. I threw those in my bag. I also snagged a protein shake and some jerky at the airport. There's actually a good amount of like high protein options at the airport, which I was surprised by. And then also I always have like some go-tos on airport restaurants or even just places in general that I go to once I'm at the location. So Starbucks, I always get a turkey bacon sandwich from there because there's usually Starbucks everywhere and that has a decent amount of protein to calorie ratio. And then also just like steak at dinner, easy. Can never go wrong with that. Kava, I also recently discovered that and it's pretty amazing. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but I'm a huge fan now.
Yeah, is that the Mediterranean place?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been there like once. We just got one here, but yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I recently discovered it. I don't know what I've been doing my whole life. Screw Chipotle. I'm all in on Kava now.
Well, we just got one, so I mean, it has it's a little bit smaller town. Sometimes we don't get everything right away, but yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. And so yeah, then outside of that, I roughly tracked my protein just to make sure I was getting close to enough of the range I need, because I think that's the hardest thing to get when you're traveling is no places give you the adequate amount of protein that you need, and so you really got to be intentional with getting that. And then as far as staying active, I just hit the gym. I went to actually my old gym that I used to go to, which was super cool. Played some pickleball, did some hiking, just made sure I got my 10K steps a day. Just kept it super simple outside of that.
I love taking vacations and going on trips, and so that's kind of something in the back of my mind I'm always thinking about as well. And we always, luckily, our girls in dance, their teams are fantastic. They're just really well run, and they always earn a trip to nationals in Orlando. And so it's not a it's kind of like a work slash fun trip. You know, for the most part for the girls, it's a work. They're there to perform and to compete, and so. It's not a whole lot of time off for them, but there is some time that they get to go to the parks, to Disney World, and we get to have a little bit of free time as well. A lot of it's sitting around. So it's kind of thinking about how to plan for a trip like that, you know, for example, and kind of very similar to like what you're talking about. And we'll discuss this more in detail later, but there are certain snacks that I like to bring with me, you know, on the plane, and then as well to have at the hotel. Then I kind of do a mixture of eating stuff that I have already brought with me, like protein shakes type of thing. And then also sometimes I can't do anything about it. You know, it's just stuff that I'm gonna have to buy a food truck or something like that. So we'll talk about it later too. I think the biggest thing for me is that sleep schedule. You know, because I'm really routine with the sleep schedule. I get to bed about the same time every day, and I really try to focus on getting up. I have most control over getting up every morning at the same time. And so even if I'm staying out late, I still want to get up early when I normally get up and just make that routine-ish. And I've seen a lot of research on whether you go to bed, you know, later than your normal, what it's still better to wake up early, and that kind of prevents like jet lag and all that other kind of stuff, and keeps the routine and the schedule going. But I mean, there might be a time where I get home at, you know, 10, 11, 12 o'clock for the dance thing, and I'm usually going to bed like at 9 or 9:30 type of thing, and so that's definitely a struggle too.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to have like a few of those non-negotiables that you can stick to when you're on trips like that. But we do also have Christmas coming up next week as of this recording. I'm curious if you guys doing anything fun or have any traditions or anything like that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of, you know, little traditions that we do with the family. We'll do things, and a lot of it's, I say a lot, but there's some things that like I did when I was a kid. Like we always will like open a gift Christmas Eve the night before. This is something I did as a kid, and I loved, and so we do that with our girls. And for us, we don't travel much during Christmas. We usually have it at our house, especially when the girls were younger. I mean, that was ideal. But so we normally have it at our house, and it's really laid back. It's really quiet. My wife's parents come up, and it's just a nice, relaxed time, and we'll have dinner and, you know, open presents, watch parades and football, of course, you know, type of thing for me anyway. And
Naturally.
so it's always just really laid back, and the weather here is really weird. Like you never know; it could be warm on a, you know, Christmas Day, it could be snowing type of thing, or raining or whatever. So most of it's inside, but it's just kind of a real chill day.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that. Do you see much of your extended family? Do they ever come for these types of things, or is it more just kind of you guys?
Yeah, now it's just us. You know, when we were younger, and my you know, my brother and sister, and they had younger kids, and my parents would come up more often. Every now and then we would have it. You know, we hosted it a couple times, or we'd go down there a couple times. Of course, as all the everyone, you know, my brother and sister has kids as well, and so of course, the older the kids get, the more things are going on, and it's just easier sometimes just to not be going everywhere, type of thing. So, but I love it. It's just really chill time of year, and I enjoy it a lot.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoy. That being said, though, let's dive into how to approach traveling, how to stay on track while also enjoying things with also not stressing about every little detail. I think first step is just the planning. Before you even go on the trip, we need to have the proper plan in place. So before you leave, I think it's great to pack some high protein snacks or nutrient dense snacks. Again, this is what I did when I went to Arizona. This is what I do anytime, especially with protein bars. I'll load up on that. But this is just going to help keep you fueled and prevent impulse purchases of unhealthy options, especially at the airports. There's a lot of unhealthy stuff out there, a lot of like sugary snacks and things that you could turn to. So it's good to have some good things packed with you so that way you can stay on track and aren't tempted by those other things. Few snack ideas could be protein bars, even packing protein powder and mixing that in with some water. Beef jerky, beef sticks, huge fan of those as well. Any sort of fruit, hard boiled eggs, tuna, or even just prep some full meals of your own. Like you can pack food with you on the airplane, or especially if you're driving somewhere, you can pack stuff with you. So sometimes I'll even just pack some meal prep. Or one time I packed just a bunch of steak and was just eating it on the plane. So you can always pack some stuff, especially if it's going to be a shorter travel day. It's easy to just pack a little bit of breakfast or lunch to take with you and eat on the plane. And the airport actually has a ton of high protein and healthy options. Like when I was at the convenience store, there was a whole section of protein bars, protein shakes, dried fruit, stuff like that. So there actually is a decent amount of options. You just kind of got to know what to look for.
Yeah, actually, a few times ago, I traveled and I was pleasantly surprised. There's this big wall. You should see my smile. I was like, I was like a kid at a candy store. I was like, whoa, look at all these protein bars, type of thing. Of course, they're two or three times more than you would, so it's probably better just to bring it with you. But the options are there. And you mentioned Starbucks. A lot of airports have Starbucks, which they have those egg bites that are really good. And even if you just get just coffee, if you're wanting something to kind of get you going, that'll help you as well. But yeah, I remember one of my favorite. Actually, I saw you're talking about beef jerky, and I love beef jerky. One of my favorite, my brother-in-law made sent home with me. I went out to visit them and my sister and him, and they sent me with some. I think it was a venison mix of beef jerky, venison and beef, and he gave me this two big, mega, like foot long. Might have been longer than that. I don't know. And I threw them in my backpack, and hour and a half flight or whatever, both were gone. Like it was so good. I was like, oh, I gotta eat the other one. This is amazing. But yeah, all those options you gave, I think are really good options. And again, I think the key is just to plan for it. Have it out. Because if you don't plan for it, if you just kind of show up and you never know what kind of delays you're going to have. And so whether you're driving or flying, and so having those things just ready for you. One, it's going to be much cheaper. But also you're going to have that available to you. And then if you don't want to use it or need it, you don't have to, but at least it's there for you and you have it and you have those good options.
Yeah, definitely. And there's even some other like kind of basic essentials too that you can consider bringing. One is make sure you have water, just like some sort of shaker bottle too, especially if you're bringing protein powder. That'll be great to mix that. Supplements, again, depending on how long you're gonna be there, like what you need to take. You can take some vitamins, some creatine. I know we both take creatine with us everywhere. And so protein powder too falls under that category. Also food scale, potentially depending on like how regimented you want to be with stuff, or if you need to track specific items or you're gonna be cooking stuff, it could be useful. Also just Ziploc bags or meal prep tubs can be useful too, depending on what you're bringing or what you're picking up at the grocery store when you get there.
Okay, so if you could only bring one thing, what would you bring? I know this is a super tough question because I was trying to run it through my head like, what would I bring? Oh my gosh, I don't know. Well, you had only room for one thing. What would you bring out of all those options that you gave? You're flying somewhere. You can only bring one of those things.
Probably, are you meaning like the food or just like the items in general?
Anything you listed, the items, food.
Hmm. Probably protein bars, honestly, just because that's like I go to. I have them every day before the gym, and it's just easy to grab and go. So I'd probably do that just because it's my standard.
Do you have a go-to protein bar?
I kind of switch. Like I'll get sick of them after a while, so I'll switch around. I like the barbells, and then I recently been trying the Built Puff bars. They do have like a decent amount of sugar though, which isn't ideal. But I kind of just like trying a few different ones and seeing which one I like the most, and then sometimes I'll just rotate them.
Yeah, I have. I've tried so many of them, and there's some that are pretty good. My favorite, which I'll just go through boxes of, is the Quest bar, the chocolate chip cookie dough. For whatever reason, that thing just hits the spot every time I have it. So I love it. I think if I had, I think I would go with the protein powder.
Mm.
I think I would go with the protein powder. Probably just because I've had, so many shakes as my morning meal. And I think sometimes it's the hardest to get enough protein, and to be able to start that day off with a lot of protein, I think just really sets the stage for an awesome day. So I think I would go with the protein powder.
Solid choice. I mean, yeah, very versatile, easy way to get in protein, so can never go wrong with that.
And then talking about planning ahead, we talked about, you mentioned a lot of food items you can bring, as well as like your shaker bottle or other supplements, things like that. But also packing workout gear. one thing, and again, a lot of this is going to be like, we're going to talk about planning ahead, right? So if what hotel well, you should know what hotel you're staying in, where you're staying in, and what kind of equipment access you have, whether you have none or whether you have a full gym or kind of like a typical hotel gym. It might be beneficial to pack some bands, which are really simple, super light. And we can jam them in a backpack even if you wanted to. But just knowing like what you want to bring with you, and then scheduling, and then have an idea of when you're going to get these workouts in. The other thing is, let's say you have this great, plan to work out, and you brought some food, you brought some prep, but you don't really know when you're going to work out. It's really easy to all of a sudden, oh, you know what, I didn't get my workout in today, and I'll just work out tomorrow. You know what, I'm not sure, I didn't work out today. So kind of having a plan, say, I think every morning I'm going to get up and work out, or every afternoon we're going to come back and take a break during the afternoon and go to the pool, whatever, I might get a workout in there, or do whatever it may be. Just have it scheduled, and just in the back of your mind, this is when I'm going to work out to get those in.
Yeah, I think that's a good practice just in general day-to-day life, but especially when you're on trips and there's lots of meetings, or if you're at a conference or something, like schedules are usually pretty crazy. So find some time to block it in, set it in your schedule so it's a non-negotiable. And again, same thing applies to day-to-day life. It's best to just block it out in your calendar and make sure that's in there so you know exactly when you're doing it and it becomes a priority just like everything else.
Yep. And I think too, talking about more doing a little research. I love planning vacations, and I love kind of doing the research of like where I want to stay and where I'm going to eat. And so, kind of looking at the restaurants in the area. I love staying like downtown somewhere where I can walk to places, and I love finding a really cool place that I can walk to and really enjoy the food. That's my favorite. I like walking, but it's much easier to see that city as well. If I'm driving, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. It's a new place or a different place, so I'm not as familiar with it. So I'm really paying attention to where I'm going. But if I can walk around, it's more sightseeing, and so I really love doing that. So a lot of times, just researching the different restaurants and finding out what kind of foods they have, and not necessarily like saying I have to eat this when I get there, but just knowing that there are good options for you, whatever your goal may be. And I think you'd probably agree with this. I think the number one thing is if you can make sure you get enough protein, that's going to fix a lot of other issues with your meal. Even if it's like high carb or high sugar or high fat, whatever it may be, if you're getting a lot of that protein in first, that's going to help a lot of those other problems. So just taking a few minutes to check those out and decide like what would be a great place for the goal and the plan that you're having. And then also knowing where you might have healthy meals available if you want to or need those. You'd mentioned like Chipotle and Cava. There's some other places out there that you can find some really good, healthier options. So I think that's always a good plan to have going in. So doing a little research with that. I think looking at hotels that either have like some kind of kitchenette or some kind of kitchen option, or ones that are located near like a little grocery store or places that you can easily shop or run to really quickly. A lot of it gives you more control over what you're eating and the choices that you make. I think probably the most stressed out I get is when I don't have a lot of control over the choices. Let's say I'm at a dance thing and all they have is like a couple of vendors or something like that, or some concession stand food, and it's like I really don't want any of this stuff. Plus, it's like 10 times as much as it should be. I just don't enjoy that food, and I don't really like eating just to eat. Like I want to enjoy whether and a lot of times when I go out, it's more so about the environment and the atmosphere that I'm in. So I think that's important to look at. And then just in terms of your hotel, most hotels will have like a mini fridge, but if they don't, or a lot of times they'll have one available, you just have to request it. So I think that's good to have. And then you can either storing some of those snacks that you mentioned that you brought on the plane or in the car, or if you go to a grocery store when you get to your destination, and then putting those things in the fridge, and then leftovers. That's a good way too. I think some people kind of feel guilty if they're out at a really nice restaurant and they're out of town. They're like, gosh, I don't want to waste all this food. I got to eat it. But if you have a fridge or have a place to store it, say, you know what, I can have it tomorrow morning, or I can have it the next day or something like that. That'll save some money. Plus you have some more options. So I think that's pretty important to do. Thinking about sticking to your regular meal schedule, I think is important when you're talking about eating or staying at a hotel or going on vacation or work trips. So thinking about like, if I normally eat at this time in the morning, this is when I'm going to have breakfast, or when I'm out, sightseeing or whatever I'm doing, try to plan that lunch about the same time, try to plan the dinner about the same time. It doesn't always work out that way, obviously, but having that, kind of making that a goal. And then, of course, hotel gyms, kind of find out like what equipment is available. I know I've talked to people that are really into it, and they're like, you know what, I don't stay at a hotel resort that does not have a gym. You don't have to necessarily be that far into it, but at least knowing what they have, and then or what gyms are available that you can maybe do like a day pass to, if that was important to you. But again, I think the biggest thing is having control over what's going on and having that plan going into it.
Yeah, I like what you said about having the control too, because there are those times where I've been in situations where I don't have control over it, and then I get pissed off too. I'm like, I don't want any of these, so I'm not going to eat. Like, I don't want all that shit. But
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan on also staying at like some sort of central location that is close to a bunch of restaurants, close to a gym, or just close to all kinds of things that you can walk to. I think that makes a big difference, like you said earlier too. I there's I go on this recurring business trip to Virginia, and I always love it because it's walking distance to so many great restaurants. It's walking distance to the venue that we're at and the gym. So I get to walk everywhere, have everything that I need like within that close vicinity. So I'll even like walk to like CVS or something if I need to pick up stuff. So it's just so great and convenient. And so anytime I travel, I always just look up the surrounding area to make sure that there's stuff that's close by. So if I do need to grab something, or I do need to hit the gym, or I want a healthy option, like it's very close and accessible.
Yeah.
And then as far as the airport, that's kind of the next step. Once you have things planned and you're at the airport, I think the airport food courts can be a nightmare. Like I said, you gotta know what to look for. And I don't know if you ever like sit and observe people at the airport. It's just like such an interesting dynamic, and a lot of people just go and they just eat. Like they get to the airport and then they eat, and then they stay on the plane and then they eat. So I think another thing too is this could be a great time to just go fasted, especially if you have like a shorter trip. Just bring some water and just chill, or like you said, pack your own snacks and stuff. But if you do choose to eat out, always great to look for grilled protein, salads, wraps, stuff like that. Again, my go-tos are usually a turkey bacon sandwich from Starbucks or grilled nuggets from Chick-fil-A. If they have those, I'll just get like a bunch of chicken nuggets and just have that. Or if they have like a Chipotle or Qdoba, I love doing bowls like that from there too. So those are kind of like some of my staples if I am eating at the airport restaurants. Um, and then also just stay hydrated. Another great hack to eating less too. And just getting some steps. I always will like pace back and forth or like walk around the area before I board my flight, especially if I have more time. I'll sometimes just like walk to the other terminals and just get steps in and see what else is out there. And then it makes it a lot easier to stay sitting for, especially if you have a longer flight.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do is I'm one of those weird, you've seen some memes about it, but maybe it's a dad thing, like I want to know where my gate is, and so and I'm one of those guys, like that's exactly me when you see those memes or whatever. But like I want to get off the plane. Let's say I have a long layover, 2 hour layover. I want to get to that gate. I don't know why. I want to get there fast. I want to get there, make sure it's there. Then I'm like, okay, now we can relax and figure out, And so, but I do like to walk up and down and just kind of check out what options are available. And then, like you said, people watching, walking just up and down and just looking at, people sitting down there walking, whatever. It's super interesting, people watching. And I love to kind of like create these little stories, like where they're going and why they're going there and what's going on with this person and why this person is running, And so the airport is a very interesting place. And so I think you get a lot out of it. You get to walk around and just experience what's going on around you. And then you just, the bonus, you get those steps in. So, but I think you feel better too, because you're just sitting down so much, so just walking around and then of course either you can find better options and decide what's the best option for you. I mean, there's been, I think it was the Miami airport one time I found this really good like Cuban place that had some great Cuban coffee options and great Cuban sandwiches. And it wasn't necessarily where our gate was. So if I hadn't walked all the way down to this one terminal, I would have never found it. So
Yeah, I do that all the time too, just scoping out what's there. I'll walk around. Also, I'm the person who's sitting there in a deep squat, just like stretching, doing some mobility before I get on my flight. I have no shame.
all right. And then, we've talked about flying, but of course, a lot of people drive. And a similar approach, a similar idea, of course, a lot of times you just have more options, right? So packing like a case of bottled waters is always nice to have with you. You can either bring in protein powder or things like that. You can actually bring the whole, the whole bag. You don't have to like try to pack it up or anything like that. So I remember my mom, we used to travel, we drive from Houston to California because they were from California. And she would have everything. She would make like the breakfast ahead of time and lunch ahead of time. We'd put it in coolers, and we didn't have to stop. It was like the only time we're stopping is to go to the bathroom. And I kind of adopted that kind of philosophy now. I think my girls would probably prefer us to like stop and eat at a restaurant or something like that. I'm like, we're making good time. We gotta keep going, type of thing. But what I like to do is I'll stash like a bunch of like protein options, at the console in the front of my car, and then just kind of snacky stuff for everyone so they can have things that they want. But yeah, take advantage of the room that you have. And it doesn't mean you have to pack everything and not ever eat out, but just have some things in case you need them. Or like, for example, bananas for my shakes. I'll make sure I have some of those. And I think the best thing is we use the word control a couple of times. Being as prepared as possible so you have as much control of the situation, and then you can go either way on how you want to handle that once you get there.
Yeah, exactly. I also make a decent amount of trips to Orlando here from Tampa. And so with that, I love, like, I'll usually bring, because those are typically shorter business trips, like a few days or just the weekend or something for a conference or whatnot. So I'll usually pack my meal prep with me and have that for like breakfast or lunches. And then like during the event, I'll come back and eat lunch. And then sometimes if I'm like meet people and we go out to lunch, it's totally fine. I have my option there if I need it. But if not, it's always fine to deviate from the plan, but at least you have that control. And the majority of time you're locked in. At least that's how I like to approach it, especially when I'm driving for trips like that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
And then whenever you get to whatever location you're going to, never hurts to make a grocery run, especially if you're there for a longer period of time. Even if you have just a mini fridge, you can stock up on a lot of healthy essentials that will align with your fitness goals. Just to name a few, rotisserie chicken. Sometimes people forget that those exist. Whole ass chicken, or even just pre-cooked chicken breast. They have a lot of those like packaged at grocery stores that you can get for easy grab and go protein. Hard boiled eggs, Greek yogurt is a great one. Cottage cheese, obviously protein bars and shakes like we talked about. Deli meats, or just pre-washed salads, or any kind of fruit. Easy to grab and go as well. Pre-cut veggies, you can add that with hummus or cottage cheese as well. Instant oats or rice cakes, and just there's also like pre-made meal prep options that a lot of grocery stores have too. So there's a ton of options that you can just grab to have with you, especially just having high protein snacks throughout the day, even if you're supplementing main meals that you're going into, is going to make a huge difference. And then I'd also say just plan for indulgence. If there's something that you're looking forward to, totally fine. Just plan around it and remind yourself too that one meal or one day isn't going to mess everything up. So it's okay if things aren't exactly perfect. We're talking about all these things to make sure that you're aligned, but like I said, you can deviate from the plan. Just have a plan for it and make sure that you're getting a lot of your protein in beforehand or eating the right things beforehand. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. And having that plan and understanding like how you want to approach the trip, I think makes a huge difference. If you're just been locked in all year and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to go on this trip. I'm not going to worry about getting a certain amount of protein in, or I'm not going to worry about weighing this, or I'm not going to meal prep, but have that plan going in, that approach, that's the way I'm going to handle it. Then you feel way less guilt when you're going out to eat or you're buying something that you normally wouldn't eat. And you're just like, hey, this is the way I was going to do this, and this is the way it's going to be. And so it depends on the trip, of course, my mindset. But just having that mindset going in, I think is really important too.
Absolutely.
All right. So we talked about some hotel workouts. So work trip, you might be crunched for time because you got a lot of meetings or there's a lot of things you're there for. And then vacation, we don't expect most people to be spending an hour working out every day when they should be at the beach or exploring the city or doing whatever they want. So even if it's not fully equipped, or even if you don't have a whole lot of access, you can still have a great workout. You can do short, intense circuit stuff, which we normally don't promote, but in a time like this one, those are great if you normally don't do them.
Yeah.
So if you're never doing, short, high intense, like a hit workout or something like that, maybe this is a great time to do it. And then things, obviously we talked about using bands or doing a type of workout that you normally don't do, I think is really, really effective, especially for a time like this. And we're talking like, short 10, 15, 20-minute sessions. It's really just to get in. A lot of it's feeling consistent, and so I like to get my workouts in when I'm on vacation. But it's not because I feel like I'm going to lose any of the results I've gained over the years or anything like that. It's more of the just keeping with my routine and being consistent and feeling good about what I'm doing every day. And so a lot of times this is a short workout, and I'm like I said, I'll probably change it up and do something different than what I normally do. And it's usually the intensity is pretty low, but I feel really good about it, getting that workout in. So it's just a great opportunity to mix up that workout routine. And then sometimes maybe even you just have to do body weight exercises. Something real simple would do like a push up, lunge, squat type of hit workout real quick. I mean, it'll take you probably 10 minutes. You'll feel great when you're done doing that. And then I think the ultimate key here is that we want you to be active for the rest of your life. Like, we kind of want that mindset of you're always on the move type of thing. But vacation is really about relaxation. And so if you're on a vacation, we want you to make sure that the workouts are there to enhance your trip and not to add stress to it, because ultimately you're not going to lose much just by either taking the week off or not getting a fantastic workout in. So, and one thing we haven't even really talked about much, well, we have, I guess we talked a little bit, but walking whenever possible. Just especially, and we've talked about this before, especially after meals. Walking after meals, your digestion is going to improve, the blood sugar control is going to improve, and you're just going to feel way better.
Yeah, regarding the stress too, as far as workouts, typically I will also work out either on vacation or on work trips. I'm talking more work trips in this regard, but I I go more for the mental benefits when I'm traveling because I don't expect things to be perfect, especially when the sleep schedule is off. If you've been sitting for a while, your body's tight, like things never feel the best. So I'm not going for crazy PRs or really sticking to my normal routine. Sometimes I will, depending on the nature of it, but typically I'm just getting in, maintaining that habit, and also just getting myself in a better mental space, having more energy to go. And either if I'm sitting all day at a conference or something, it just helps me set the tone for my day and make sure that I'm doing what I need to do for my mental health. So that's kind of more of the intent that I go in with that. And I'm not worrying about being perfect or trying to maintain all my progress or anything. It's really just kind of maintaining that routine, like you said. And then, yeah, just continue to incorporate movement into your travel itinerary. Like we talked about, walking anywhere and everywhere you can. I love walking to the gym. I love walking to restaurants, making sure I'm hitting my step goal, anything like that. Or even just finding local trails. I did that when I was in Virginia as well. There was actually a trail right by my place, which was perfect. So I'll just go and explore that trail and just get some extra steps. So I love doing stuff like that just to make sure I'm staying active. Or even during meetings or like conferences, this is a common thing for me. So I'll like go and pace back and forth or just walk out during our breaks just for like 5 minutes just to get some extra steps and activity in.
Yeah, there's a really cool place that I like in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and right across the street is a national park, and you can actually, the hotel or the resort actually has bikes that you can use, and so you can just cross on over into the national park and just ride your bike along. So I mean, we never ride bikes, but whenever we go there and stay there, we're like, yeah, let's go for a bike ride. You know, it's just fun. You're out in nature and you're doing something different. So just things like that, I think, are always fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta get out and explore too. If you have extra time, like go explore and stay active.
Yes, yes, for sure. All right, so a lot of times when you're out, whether it's especially work trips, a lot of times you have no option, right? Some vacations, a lot of times you can choose to stay at a house or get a hotel that has a kitchenette or something. But a lot of times work trips, you don't really have an option. You got to eat out, and sometimes you don't even have an option of where you're eating. Right, you might be eating with a client, and you just have to show up, or your boss picks it, whatever. So you want to have a plan going into that as well. All right, and so obviously look for dishes that are grilled or baked or steamed, instead of fried. Look for high protein options like chicken or fish or steak. Most places will have something like that, right? And then you can even double up sometimes. Ask for an extra portion of protein if you don't feel like you're getting enough. Think about portion sizes. A lot of times we go to restaurants and it's like twice or three times the amount of food that we would normally have to begin with. I was thinking about too, a lot of times we get bread in our meals. Trying to hold off on that until like after we eat our protein. I know that's probably, a lot of times I'll go out to eat, everyone has, it's like chips or bread, right? Everyone sits down and it's like everything's gone in like 5 seconds, type of thing. But having a protein first really helps stabilize the blood sugar as well. So if you can have those, fine, but eat it after you have your high protein. And then sometimes what people like to do is they'll ask for a to-go box before the meal even arrives and have that plan. I'm going to eat about half of this, and then I'll take the rest home and then eat it later at another time. Something that'd be kind of cool is eat all the protein first, and then whatever you're still hungry, eat that, and then put everything else in the box. And if you want to have some, tomorrow, you can add to that.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they give you bread and chips before your meal. I don't know if people realize this, but it kind of triggers that hunger signal. Like it doesn't fill you up, but it makes you want to eat more. And so it's kind of I'm sure it's a strategy that restaurants have to get you to eat more during your meal because otherwise they wouldn't want to fill you up before your meal actually comes. So just something to consider.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not in the business to be like, you know what, I had a whole bowl of chips. I think I'm good, guys. I think I'm good. You know.
But no one ever.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, I just ate that whole bag of chips and then I had a regular meal. That's crazy. So speaking of chips, fries. If you want healthier options, you can replace that with like a side salad or steamed vegetables or a baked potato, sweet potato. Those are really good options. And just little small changes. Sometimes look at or ask how the meal is prepared. And especially if there's something that you don't love, or sometimes like for salads, I love like extra virgin olive oil on as a dressing, and so sometimes I'll ask if I can just have like a little cup of that, and I'll put some salt in there, and that makes a huge difference in my salads. And it's interesting too. Sometimes they don't have it, and sometimes that tells you the quality of the restaurant when they're just like, oh, we just have like canola oil, I guess. But so those are just little things and they all add up, and I do want to say too, we're talking a lot about like a lot of healthy options to bring with you or to change. But you can also have that mindset going in, like I said, where you're like, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I'm not going to worry about that, and you kind of have to know yourself. If you've kind of been really obsessive about a lot of things or you've been really dialed in, it actually might even be a healthy thing to not worry about those things. And so I know when I go to certain restaurants, for example, if I go to Texas, I go to a barbecue place, man, I am just eating everything in sight. One, I'm getting in tons of protein, but I'm eating, potato salad and I'm loading it up with barbecue sauce. And I know that I'm going to go way overboard. I'm going to be stuffed. I eat way too much, but I really enjoy it, and so there's no guilt to it afterwards. It's just, that's what I wanted. I really enjoyed it. I don't get it that often. And so I truly enjoy that meal. And I think that's, again, going into it, you want to enjoy your meal. If all of this is going to stress you out on the opposite side of things, you're like, I'm really not enjoying anything I eat because I'm trying to make it as healthy as possible, then you got to have some balance and that moderation for that as well.
Yeah, and you don't need to necessarily get into all these little details. I think it's good to have that in the back of your mind and know what to look for and how to navigate the menu and like what things to swap out. Because once you have that in the back of your mind, it becomes very easy and you can still very much enjoy your meals too. But also, sometimes it's just basically every restaurant has some of those main entrees, that have chicken, fish, steak, whatever, that have a good solid protein source, and they're usually still very tasty. So like even choosing something like that, eating the protein first and then enjoying everything else will make a huge difference. So it's just knowing again how to navigate the menu, what specifically to look for, and then just that intention will make a huge difference.
Right. And then, of course, a lot of people like to drink with their meals, which is totally fine. If you do it, I think it's good to have a plan going in, and because it's easy to start drinking and then realize, oh my gosh, I've had a couple of too many drinks or whatever it may be. So if that's what you want to do, that's great. Just kind of have a plan going in, especially if you're on a work trip. Consider like how that might affect everything else around you. Make sure you have a plan going in for that. But if you're like, I'm not quite sure I want alcohol, I'm not quite sure what to do instead. Of course, sticking to water or adding lemon to water or getting sparkling water helps out. Or even like Diet Cokes, things like that. I know there's kind of the argument on both sides whether even Diet Coke is great for you, whatever. But it's going to be a way better option than a lot of things that are out there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I built out a whole guide on how to navigate eating out while you're traveling. All the stuff that we're talking about, I break this down in our free guide. So if you guys are interested in that, I will drop the link to download that in the show notes and it'll walk you through everything. And even going into different types of cuisines and what to look for when you're ordering stuff at the restaurant. So that's another super helpful resource.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you on this. So your preference, you're going to a restaurant and you're wanting to eat really clean. What would be, let's just say you have any option. All right. What would be your choice?
Ooh. I mean, I gotta go with steak. If there's steak, or even just like some sort of main fish dish, I really like that, or like scallops or something along those lines. I always go for those types of things. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. So, and I think the main thing is like seafood. I'm not the best chef when it
Mm.
comes to seafood, and I just don't cook it very often. And so if, especially if it's seafood restaurant, obviously I'm always going seafood. But if it has a really good seafood dish, scallops, you mentioned that is one of my favorites. A lot of times I'll do that, or I'll do a really nice cut of steak. I'll rarely eat chicken because I have that all the time, or anything to do with ground beef, something simple that I can make at home all the time. So those are probably my two things. So on the other side of things, let's say you don't care about calories, anything. What would be kind of like your go-to? Like, I can't believe Mackenzie ate that. Tell me that.
Well, I never do anything like super crazy like that, but any sort of Asian food is my favorite. Like I could eat that all day, every day. Sushi, obviously, we know is one of my go-tos, but any sort of like noodle dish or just anything Asian, it's my absolute favorite. So anything along those lines, I will go for.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, mine would be a burger and fries.
Figured.
I can have, yeah, and I love salads, but I'm never substituting fries if it's good fries. I really, a lot of times I'll sneak a peek at the fries if I've never been there, to see what kind of fries there are,
Yeah.
because you can usually tell, especially if I've been there before. Man, if I can get a really big burger, if they have a double size, I'll double the patties up, and a good thing of fries, and I'm good. I love that type of meal.
Love me some sweet potato fries.
Yeah, sometimes I do. Again, it depends on the restaurant. Sometimes I'd rather have
Yeah.
regular fries, actually.
Fair.
So, and one thing, we've also talked about having a plan and having control over everything. And sometimes it also depends on that type of trip, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like work trip versus vacation, short trip versus long trip, in general, when it's a work trip, at least how I approach it is that's when I'm trying to be more locked in. I'm like hitting my workouts again. They're not going to be perfect, but I'm eating good choices. Like I'm packing a lot of stuff. And then if it's a longer work trip, like I'm bringing my meal prep with me or I'm going to the grocery store and grabbing stuff. So that way I have more options. And then I'm also more loosely tracking food too. Either I'll track everything and try to be super consistent or just make sure I'm tracking my protein and stuff like that. So I'm usually more locked in on those types of trips. When it's vacation, that's something that I'm trying to work on, just more going with the flow and just enjoying myself and not stressing myself, not tracking any details. I'm just making like good choices here and there, but I'm really just going in with the enjoyment and not stressing about stuff. If it's longer, then I'll try to be a little bit more intentional with stuff. But in general, that's where I'm just kind of going with the flow and not stressing about every single detail.
Yeah, and if I was thinking, if you've tracked food before, then especially the more often you do it, you kind of get to understand like the serving size of certain things. And so, like, oh, this is about 6 ounces of meat, or this is about,
Mhm.
a cup of fruit. And so you don't necessarily have to have a scale. You don't necessarily have to track because you kind of already know, you have an idea of what that's going to be anyway. And that takes a lot of stress off of worrying about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, like all of that has become automatic for me. Like I generally know exactly what to look for. I know what kinds of things to order, how much protein I need in each serving size. So yeah, the more you have experience with that, the easier it becomes to make these sort of trips automatic without having to track a single thing. And so also going in, this kind of comes with the mindset and like going in without that all or nothing mindset or like shifting to more of the progress over perfection. That's kind of our motto because things are not always going to go smooth. And so you just got to continue to focus on the things that you can control, whether that's the meal planning or staying active. And also just letting go of the things you can't, whether you're having flight delays or limited food options. Don't stress over that. Focus on the things that you actually can control. And then also, you can have like some sort of accountability too. This is where a coach can be super useful, or just having someone with you that if you're going traveling with a spouse or like an employee or like someone in your company, just track those small wins and have some sort of accountability system with them or something that you guys are doing together. I think that will help keep things aligned. Or even just journaling your progress and just reflecting on that can help stay focused with your goals long term. And like we said, even just tracking a few details just to make sure you're aligned, I think having some level of accountability will make a huge difference. And then reflection too, post trip. It's always good to reflect on what went well, what didn't. I mean, we like doing weekly check-ins with clients. I even myself, like I do weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, like every sort of like milestone I like checking on myself. But like even after a trip, it's good to reflect on what worked, what didn't. So that way you have more of that awareness and you can create a better plan and strategy just going into the next one. And then each time it just becomes more and more simple, more and more automatic, so that way you don't have to think about this stuff anymore. Because we're going over a lot of things and a lot of things to pay attention to. But like I said, for me, all this stuff, like I don't think about it at all when I'm there. I just do it because it's become second nature. So the more you get into it, the easier it's going to become. And overall, if things didn't go quite as planned, again, that is okay. It's not the end of the world. Just get right back into your routine and make the most of your time that you have when you're locked in your normal routine before you travel again.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That post-trip reflection, I think that's really good. And then, like going right back into getting back into everyday life, whether it's from a work trip or getting from a vacation. I think it's so important to get back into the routine as soon as possible. Because I feel like the longer you wait to get back into it, the better the chance that that's going to not be a routine anymore,
Yeah.
and your routine is not going now, type of thing. So, and it doesn't have to be, let's say you're going on a vacation, you're going on a work trip, it's a week or two long. It doesn't have to be going in on that Monday and hitting it like full intensity and doing the best workout you've ever been. Sometimes it's good just kind of easing back into it and just kind of getting into everything again. But I think establishing that consistency, even if you just went and said, I'm just going to go to the gym and just do like one exercise a day, just kind of work on my squat, whatever it may be, that establishes, okay, this is my routine, vacation, whatever it was, that's awesome. We had a great time, but this is my routine for everyday life. And the most of my life is going to be like this. So I want to consistently get back into this. So, and that's a lot of times we joke around like we need a vacation from the vacation type of thing. Because we come back and then we have all these things that we're taking a vacation from that's back into our life. And so, there's a lot of stress involved. And so I think just keeping up with that routine, getting back into that consistency, especially if you can do it first thing in the morning, knocking it out, you really set the stage to have a better day, less stress. You've already worked out, you feel better, and you can handle all the stuff that's maybe piling up when you're gone, or just stuff that is just every day anyway. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just establishing that routine again and not letting it go too far and getting away from yourself.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself or if things didn't go exactly as planned, but it's easy. Like I always say, the momentum flows in either direction, whether you're locked in or whether you're slacking off, for lack of a better term. Like it's easy to let things slide. So it's important to like get right back into the routine, right back into that mindset once you get back and not let things spiral out of control. I think as long as you can stop yourself, one trip, one day is not going to ruin things. One week isn't going to ruin things as long as you're getting back on track and not letting that spiral out of control.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll give a quick baseball analogy. So if you're a baseball fan, baseball is one of the hardest sports there is, right? And so it's essentially you're failing way more than you succeed, all right? And so and the thing is, there's so many games, like you could have a horrible game, the next day you got to wake up and get out there and do your best again, and you might start stringing a few games together where you're just not playing well. And the biggest example is probably like a relief pitcher. They might go in and they might blow a game and lose the game, and then the next day have to go right back into the same situation. And so you really have to have that mindset of, okay, I'm going to learn from what happened, but I'm going to quickly erase, the negative effects from it. And so same thing with vacation or work trip. If you had a bad, trip in terms of I just ate whatever I wanted, or I didn't exercise much, you can learn from it. Hey, did it feel good? Do I want to change something next time? That's awesome. But we're back home. It's time to get back on track and not worry about what was in the past.
Yeah, such a good point. It's easy to get stuck in that mindset and to start beating yourself up and be like, oh, like I messed up. So what's the point? I'm just giving up
Yeah,
altogether. But no, in reality, one week, again, doesn't make a difference. So just get right back on track and everything will be good.
exactly, exactly.
So yeah, maintaining your fitness and nutrition goals while traveling or eating out doesn't need to be difficult. By simply planning ahead and going in with a plan and intent, you don't need to sacrifice your enjoyment or your fitness goals, and that's really all it takes. You just gotta know what to look for and make the right choices so that all of that becomes automatic. And so again, we built out that full guide that breaks down all of this so you can make those healthy habits automatic while on the go. If you do want to download that free copy of our eating out playbook, I will link that below. And I'll also link all of our socials if you want to follow along there. But other than that, enjoy your guys' next trip, and we will see you guys next week.